Join the meeting today. If you guys wouldn't mind just giving us, introducing yourselves. I've not worked with you before, so I'd like to know who we're talking with today.
Okay. Judy Scott, Port of Allyn Commissioner.
Judy?
Okay. I'm Larry Coppola, Executive Director at the Port of Allyn.
Hi, Larry.
Hello.
Leanne.
Hi, Leanne.
Port of Allyn.
And I'm Ken Van Busker, member of the public.
Oh, hi, Ken. We've communicated quite a bit. Yeah.
All right. I think we're organized. Okay. So our main question had to do with the surplusing of Sweetwater Park. Not Sweetwater Park, I'm sorry, the kayak park.
Okay.
In looking at the manual, we ran into some things that we think would allow us to do that. One is we can't use it for what we want to use it for because the county says we can't do anything because it's too close to the shoreline. We have to get a variance.
So what was it that you wanted to do that you couldn't do?
I'm sorry?
So I'm trying to understand, help me understand why you guys want to get rid of the property, why you want to dispose of it.
I'm trying to, I can barely hear.
Turn your hearing aids up. I can hear them.
We tried to wanted to put a gazebo there, and they said that there wasn't allowed. Right now, there's just bathrooms, and we have a high amount of vandalism and a lot of maintenance. So that's why we're interested in surplusing it.
Have you guys reached out to any other organizations to see if they might be willing to operate and maintain it on your behalf?
No, not yet.
Okay. Oftentimes when we're asked questions like this, we look for options. The purpose of the grant was to keep the property open and available for public outdoor recreation. We'd like to see that continued. It is your land, and if you decide you want to sell it, you can do that. It does require prior RCO approval, and it does require that you provide replacement property. So what that means is you have to appraise the property you're going to sell, and you get a current market value, and then you look for other similar land to that's at the same value and can provide a similar recreational usefulness. So you don't. There's no option to release you totally, like sell it and walk away from the grant obligations. We would then transfer the grant obligations to what we call the replacement property. So replacement property has to meet basic eligibility requirements, and that means it's never been acquired with a grant or for public outdoor recreation purposes. So we can certainly work with you all if you do want to sell that property. But our first step would be is there someone else that is eligible, another organization that might be willing to take on those grant obligations, just like you all took on the Sweetwater site from the school district?
Okay, kind of answers my question. It costs money, and we aren't allowed to get any money off of it either. So that's been a little difficult. Right now,
you can charge fees for sites. That's allowed.
Well, that place isn't really conducive to that.
Okay.
It's too small.
Got it.
It's just pretty much a few parking spaces and foot traffic. We do have some. Are you aware of what it is?
No, I have not had the pleasure of being at that property.
Okay. Well, there's bathrooms, or a bathroom, and then there's kiosks, of explanation and stuff. Fishermen use it. But that's in picnicking. There are some picnic tables. There's been some damage because of the tide and all that stuff lately.
We're
Okay.
expecting more this week. So, the damage was to the shoreline. It's a riprap shoreline, and the king tides did some damage to it, and we're supposed to have higher ones this week, which we expect more damage. But ongoing vandalism is a big problem there, and nobody seems to use the park except the vandals. And we've had to fix they've broken the doors down, they've tagged it, done some other damage to some of the picnic tables there and stuff. And it's just an ongoing cost for us because nobody uses the park for what it was meant for. It was meant to launch kayaks, and the problem is that it has to be extreme high tide before you can get to where the kayak launch is. I don't know who designed this park or what they did, but it doesn't function for what it was supposed to. We tried to put a little gazebo in there, thought it might make a cute little wedding venue, and the county red tagged it and said that we couldn't do anything because it was not 150 feet from the shoreline where we're going to do it. Well, the property isn't 150 feet wide. So, and, we're just kind of stuck with this thing that can't use, and it has an ongoing cost. And, the taxpayers are just basically paying to maintain something that doesn't get used. So we'd like to surplus it. And, we're just trying to figure out how to go about that.
Okay, well, I can certainly explain the conversion, what we call the conversion process. Again, as I mentioned when we first started talking, I was interested in if there was any other eligible sponsors or organizations that would be willing to take it over for you all, operate it on your behalf. You would, in that scenario, you would remain on the grant contract, and you would have a relationship, an interagency agreement with another organization to operate and maintain the site. Whether or not that organization exists or you have that desire, I have no idea, but I would just suggest that you ponder on that and give that some thought. But if in fact, oh, sorry, Judy, do you have a question?
Yeah, does it have to be a 501c3 or does it have to be a governmental agency?
And if the port remains the grant sponsor, remains on the contract, then you can contract with with a concessionaire to operate what we call concessionaire, or a lessee to operate the park. So it could be, we would just want to look at that agreement that you would draft up with the port and that other entity to make sure that you had the opportunity to terminate it if you needed to terminate it, if things weren't going as expected and in compliance with the grant conditions and that kind of thing. So that's pretty open. We don't particularly prescribe it, but it is, we do have a policy on concessions and leases that's available. It'd probably be good to just put eyes on. It's not a long policy.
Okay.
So
Okay,
if
the
in
other
fact,
question that we had was replacing that with a like amount of property.
yeah, I'm going to talk through the conversion process, Larry.
Right.
So that means that the port will formally notify RCO of your intent to convert. That requires prior approval, as I mentioned. So what you would start with is if you're going to convert the whole site, you would let us know that's your plan. And then you would start looking for replacement property, potential replacement property. And again, that would need to be something that can provide the same market value as well as similar recreational usefulness. And it has to be eligible. So the property that's at Sweetwater Park, it's already in grant boundary, is not eligible. I know you've had some conversations with staff about or had questions about that. So I just want to be really clear. So in essence, it means new land, new park land.
But in kind, meaning sort of like a 1031, same value, waterfront, accessibility, like that. Correct.
Similarly, yes, yeah, right.
Okay.
Great question, Judy. And then we would proceed through the conversion approval process. You would identify alternatives for replacement. Usually alternatives are required by the administrative rule and by board policy. That means more than one. It doesn't mean 10. It doesn't mean 5. It just means more than one. That you've given it serious thought and considered other options for replacement. You typically, a sponsor will identify a preferred replacement. And then when you've got that somewhat solidified, then that's probably the time to go get the appraisals. So you're going to have costs associated with the conversion process. You're going to have appraisals for the conversion area, the property being converted, and for the replacement land. There's a public comment period. There's a required 30-day minimum comment period on the proposed conversion and proposed replacement. We'll also do a cultural resources consultation on the replacement properties. We will need to go to the board for this conversion because it's a full conversion. So that's a minimum of 2 public meetings with the funding board. So that's kind of the process in a nutshell. It's a collaborative process. Andrea will work with you all, and I'll be available as needed if, in fact, you decide that you do want to dispose of it, sell it, surplus it. But you have to meet those steps. And when you identify replacement property, that's the first thing to get to Andrea is information on that property so she can review it to make sure it meets eligibility. So we don't want you getting too far down the road on something that's not eligible.
Great. Kind of answers my questions for me.
Okay, I'd like clarification about something. Okay, you said Sweetwater Park is not eligible. Why not?
It's been grant funded. So
no, it has not. We have no grants from RCO for Sweetwater Park. We have applied 3 times and they haven't been funded.
But previously it was purchased.
That's what I'm referring to, Judy. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, by the school it was previously purchased.
Right.
So that's why.
That property, right, that you guys got transferred from the school district and you're the grant you're the grant sponsor, the project sponsor of that site now, that property is not eligible.
Yeah.
If there's adjacent property to that that's privately owned, that potentially could be eligible. I don't know the nuances of the Sweetwater Park area, and maybe Ashley or Andrea could chime in.
Okay, what about our waterfront park here? It's not got any RCO funding at all of any kind.
So it has to be new parkland. It has to be replacement land, has to meet eligibility requirements, cannot be already owned, nor can it have been operated or maintained for public outdoor recreation. So the answer would be no.
Okay, so I don't understand something. So the kayak park is already supposedly used for outdoor recreation. Okay, the waterfront park here is also supposedly used for outdoor recreation, but since it has no connection to RCO whatsoever, why is that not eligible?
Because it's already a public park. And so when a conversion occurs by our eligibility requirements, you have to, a sponsor provides new land.
Well, it would be new land to you.
Larry, I've said it twice and I'll say it a third time. You've explained that it's already a public park. Existing public park is not eligible as a replacement for conversion.
Okay.
We get asked that quite often. It's a reasonable question to ask, and I appreciate it, but it's not eligible.
Okay, well, I got my questions answered.
So just know that if you guys decide to surplus the park, that's allowed. It requires prior approval and to go through the steps with us as I described. That's certainly your decision. If you do decide to do that, then you'll want to formally notify us in writing that you plan to surplus the property, and you'll want to work with our staff as through the conversion process. We work back and forth with you. We're willing to answer questions and be available as best we can to respond to whatever comes up along the way. So it is allowed, but it requires replacement, and that replacement needs to be eligible to be able to be approved.
Okay, I have another question.
Okay.
We're in the process of, we own a community water system, and we have a reservoir up a ways from the office here for our well. We're drilling a new well on that site, but if we were to acquire the parcel next to it, which has a view of the water and stuff, which we may use a small piece of, could we use that for conversion?
Possibly. I would ask that Andrea work with you to understand the nuances of that property and the ownership and where it is and how it provides out how it can provide outdoor recreation, but that could be a possibility, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. My questions have been answered. I will pass this on to the other commissioners, but it almost sounds like it's pretty expensive to do the conversion anyway. And with the price of properties, it might be difficult, but that one might be an option. And
well, we want to provide the facts to y'all so that you can make an informed decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you give me maybe an example of like this scenario, with the high vandalism to it, to this particular park? Do you have other examples to where a public entity has reached out to the community and worked with 501c3s maybe, or community organizations that have taken that over? Do you have any examples of that?
Well, just anecdotally, in that there are some places that have friends of the park groups that come in and do regular maintenance, and or maybe the local Lions Club or service club of some sort, is willing to kind of monitor the park for you all and keep eyes on it and a presence there. I realize it's very small, so that the idea of having someone live on site doesn't work, but we do allow like a caretaker to live on site on our park sites. That might not work for that site given that it's not large, right?
Okay, well, that's helpful to me anyway. Well, good. Thank you. I think all my questions are answered.
Okay. Okay. Well, listen, we appreciate you reaching out and asking these questions. They're great questions. And if you have any others or if we need to meet again, just reach out to us. We're happy to do that.
All right. Larry, do you have any other questions?
I don't have any. Do you have any?
No.
Did you have any, Ken?
No.
Okay. All right, well, we thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.